Hey, all you space cats. Welcome to the Black Hole Podcast, Season 7, Episode 23. I'm Mitch Miller. In 2015, I created and published a series of videos to promote a book I was associated with, simply titled The Letter M. The videos were pre-written interviews, and some of them were critical of the CIA. In late 2015, the Society of Billionaires, or the SOBs as I call them, who control the CIA, used one of their satellites to concentrate a beam of wireless energy onto my property in Pittsburgh. I experienced anxiousness and discomfort in my spine during this time. I remained on my property for 2 weeks straight, painting a series of paintings while the SOBs tortured me in my own home. At the same time, other nations were testing similar satellites on targets such as the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. Government employees experienced symptoms the government classified as Havana syndrome. I also experienced physical symptoms after my exposure. I tried to talk to the FBI at the Pittsburgh field office about these symptoms. I also left the U.S. 3 times in 2016 trying to explain to authorities or politicians about my symptoms and the possible causes. I was ignored. These paintings are archived on film and have never been digitally recorded. And as I said in the last episode, they are available for private viewing in the underground gallery behind my house. There are also 2 of them at the Original Ideas Gallery and Tattoo Parlor in Berwick, Pennsylvania. So, there's a conspiracy theory for you, right? I know what I felt. I know how I felt. I had these physical symptoms for over a year after my exposure. But the beauty of it is there's no real hard proof unless we can track every satellite in space and prove that they weren't pointed in any way at my property and that remote broadcasting stations that could bounce a signal off of these satellites produce this wireless beam and bounce it off a satellite. Does the FCC inspect these remote stations? I would if I was in the FCC, but I'm not. So, think about it. We have the technology to map out a property for a dog collar, shock collar for a dog to keep them, on the property. So we can map out a property with that signal. Why couldn't we concentrate on one property here in Pittsburgh with basically a beam of wireless energy that creates anxiety and spinal discomfort? All right, moving on. So we're in the conspiracy theory section of this podcast, right? You can't run for president if you don't have some good, juicy conspiracy theories. So we've got corporate communists and the Society of Billionaires brainwashing people using your own television screens, computer monitors that are emitting wireless waves. I hope you tested at home. I found that most of the screens I tested had these wireless waves. That was back in 2016. Maybe they changed them so that they just emit light, right? But since the inception of the smart television or the flat screen television, we should have had the technology for them just to emit light. They shouldn't have been emitting other waves into our faces and into our brains, hypothetically conditioning our brains to certain frequencies. I'm going to go into one last... I have plenty of conspiracy theories, but another important conspiracy theory, I want to get this out there. Maybe it'll help some people. I wrote this conspiracy theory as a screenplay. If you'd like to see the screenplay, I'd be happy to email it to you. I could publish it on a website. But that's how I prefer to release information, is through my writing, through screenplays, through short stories. But I'm now just bluntly stating them on this podcast, right? I try to be artistic about it. I try to fly under the radar, but now is the time to just delve into these. So I don't know how women are going to respond to this. Some may be angry. I hope they're not angry at me for proposing this conspiracy theory. But I believe wireless waves may cause breast cancer. Okay? Again, I'm just trying to get this out there. Maybe it'll help some people. I think that the metal in underwire bras gives off feedback. It becomes excited in this wireless field that we've created on the planet Earth. The wireless energy, it creates feedback off of this metal in the underwire bras. And the mammary lies over this metal underwire in direct contact. And over years of exposure to this excited metal, there's this feedback as the waves go usually unobstructed through our body, but it strikes this underwire and gives off maybe different frequencies. Maybe it gives off bad waves. However, it becomes excited and gives off that feedback. Over the course of years of this exposure, it may cause some women to develop cancer. Now, of course, some women are more likely to develop breast cancer naturally than others, but I believe this may play a factor. So maybe by putting this out there, the brassiere industry will change, or women will at least be informed as to a possible theory as to one of the possible root causes of breast cancer. So that's 3 conspiracy theories. We'll try to move away from those moving forward into the next few podcasts. But we have the brainwashing using television monitors, computer monitors. Obviously, your smartphones and tablets are emitting waves. That's pretty obvious because they accept waves. But should your televisions and your computer monitors be doing that? I don't think so. If I worked at the FCC, I would make sure that some people were held accountable for this. We have the possible satellite controlled by the Society of Billionaires, or multiple satellites controlled by the Society of Billionaires, pointing at people's properties and torturing them on their own property in their own home, which the government should be prepared to protect people from when they pay property taxes, but they don't know what's going on in space. They tried to form a whole branch of the military called the Space Force, but I bet you they still don't know what's going on up there. And then we have the breast cancer caused by wireless waves conspiracy theory. I want to move on. I want to talk about reproductive health. While we're on the topic of women, what could cause health issues, I want to talk about women's reproductive health. Now, when I look at things, I wouldn't say it's projecting, but it is kind of projecting. I try to look as far into the future as possible. And I say, where are we going with this technology? How will it be abused? How will it be used? If we don't have dialogue, it's going to be abused. If we can't shape law, then there's going to be abuses. So where are we going? This is a hot button issue, women's reproductive rights. Look, as I said before, I believe in nature. The earth, nature. If a group of cells isn't brought to viability, I believe this is nature's way of saying that particular life shouldn't exist. Okay, that's the way nature works. there's a big difference between taking an embryo or a fetus and putting it in an incubator to help it fully develop. And there's a difference between that and developing an artificial womb, genetically engineering a womb. But that's where we're headed. I've seen the things pop up on social media. We're heading towards genetically engineered wombs where an egg can be implanted in the womb, it can be fertilized in there, and it can be grown totally without a woman, hypothetically, right? So why are we headed there? Well, it comes down to this hot button issue that we're focused on right now, right? For-profit healthcare seeks the easiest route. They don't tackle the hard diseases and issues. They seek the easiest way to make a profit and the easiest way to further medicine, right? Rather than finding out the root cause of cancer, as I've proposed in some of my programs, they'd rather focus on cells at the beginning of life. Cells that are programmed to survive through adversity, right? These cells are at the beginning of life, and they are programmed to be extremely resilient, so it's easy for them to focus on this type of medicine. And insurance will pay for this, and so the profit is there for the for-profit healthcare companies. But I ask women in the United States, okay, to think of where we are going when voting on this issue. There are nations in this world, on Earth, with laws written in a way that basically a man and a woman's relationship is more of an ownership. A man owns a woman, right? That's the way some laws are written in some of these nations. Because the nations are controlled by men, they write the laws, and women are basically chattel property in some of these countries. So, as president, if we together develop a path for these countries, these nations, to have equal rights, will you consider allowing women in the United States to have reproductive freedom for another 50 years? Until we can, if we get a 50-year plan to bring everyone up to the same level of equal rights, can you just pump the brakes on taking away women's reproductive freedoms? You can do it in 50 years, right? You can ratchet back down on the conservative agenda after we've brought the rest of the world up to par. But every vote you make now, these countries look at the United States and say, look, they took this away, so we can go even further with our laws. And that's the question, where are we going? Think about it. If there are artificial wombs, if we develop this, as Big Pharma, whoever develops these artificial wombs, and a man basically owns a woman, he could use his connections with the pharmaceutical industry to get a list of compatible females using their health records. Again, we don't know who funds the health record software companies. None of that's really too regulated here in the United States. So imagine in other countries. Print out a list of 10 females that are compatible with me, and then this man with these connections, it could even be marketed in the corporate communist system. He convinces one of these females to marry him, right? Or he buys her, or he talks with the dad and arranges a marriage. What does this marriage look like in a country outside of the United States where law is written in a way that man owns a woman, basically. What does this marriage look like? Does he now own half of her eggs? Right? Are her eggs still hers? How far do we go with this? Can he have those eggs harvested from his wife, then divorce her, store the eggs, and use an artificial womb to have as many children as he wants? Can he edit the genes? We have gene editing now, right? Can he edit the genes in these eggs so that she has no parental rights whatsoever over these offspring that this man produces using an artificial womb and gene editing? Where are we going? Please just think about this. Think about the future. You have corporate communists running rampant in the United States. They've had a regime for decades now. And they're extremely stupid and brainwashed, and you have to start talking about this and legislate about this stuff, right? So that's the way I look at women's reproductive freedom. I'm Mitch Miller running for President of the United States. I want women to be equal to men in every nation in the world. And I'm going to do my darndest to get us there. I also believe anyone born within the borders, any human born within the borders of a nation should be granted citizenship of that nation, and all citizens should have equal rights. Okay? So that's pretty much what I wanted to get out there. Let's think about where this technology is going. Should we build it? Should we create it? If we do we have laws in place to ensure that it's not abused, that women can still have ownership of their eggs? How far down the path do you go of viability to the point where ownership takes over and a man owns, part of a woman's reproductive system? Until next time, I wish you peace, prosperity, and homeostasis.